G'day guys, it's Paul from Polyman Astro. In my previous video, we looked at how to identify areas that lacked contrast in our images using GHS. In today's video, we're going to look at how we can actually improve that contrast using GHS once we've identified those regions that lack contrast. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and let's dive into another Awesome. So here is a pre-stretched and pre-processed image of NGC 3572, the southern tadpoles. I've gone through the stretching to kind of get the background where I want and to kind of start to separate out that faint dust from that background. But of course, that often comes at the expense of making the image look potentially quite flat. In the previous video, we identified these regions of lack of contrast, the reason it looks flat, as these humps and flat spots, like here and potentially here as well. They're regions of lack of contrast. How do we fix that? Well, we can use the power of GHS to help us out. The kind of three things that we want to work on are the symmetry point, local intensity, and the stretch factor. The symmetry point is kind of telling us where the inflection point of the stretch is going to be. What do I mean by that? I mean that's the point where very little stretch, if any, is going to happen, and all the stretching is going to happen either side of that. The local intensity is kind of telling us, okay, I want to grab either side of that symmetry point, and anything in that kind of regions where the maximum stretch is going to happen. And then the stretch factor is, okay, how far apart am I going to pull? And those three things together are kind of going to help us out here. If I want to flatten this hump, then I choose that hump as my symmetry point. I choose a local intensity, and then we can pull this apart. And you'll see on the histogram there above that it does indeed make a nice smooth right hand side. If we have a look at what's happening here compared to what we had, it's definitely got some contrast. Maybe the brighter regions still lack some contrast, but we'll work from the main point of the hump to the right. Like I said, we could have a play with the symmetry point and see what it does. The local intensity and see what it does. So you can see it. If we pull too far, it's just going crazy. I might even back it off to 2. Less is more nowadays for me. And we can have a look at what that looked like before versus now. There we go. That's a lot smoother than it was, but I've got this new hump here now. And again, it's always good to go through your image and try and identify where this region is. So it's still all this region now. So it's pulled it a little bit, but there's still some flatness there. So let's go through this. We'll do a fairly small local intensity now. Try and back it off. And we've got to be mindful of not destroying our brightest parts of the image too. So again, how's that look? Definitely moving in the right direction. So it's flatter again. We've got this hump here. Where is that? The 70s. So it's, yeah, right around here. Okay. So let's grab that hump and be very, very gentle with this one. The other thing I've got to be mindful of is not pulling my background too far as well. Yeah, that's looking actually quite nice there, isn't it? Okay, so you can see that's now a lot smoother than it was. Again, it's not perfect, but it is definitely doing the job. Okay, now it looks like there's still a lack of contrast in the brightest regions, and I reckon that's actually here. I reckon, yeah, it is, isn't it? So there's still this tiniest little hump can make a massive difference. Let's pull this up. Let's look at the, wow, okay, that's really getting there now, isn't it? But I've got to be mindful. I don't want the background to go too dark because I'm kind of losing all that fainted dust now. So I want to make sure I bring up the shadows just a touch. Let's have a look now. There we go. So that's looking a lot smoother now. And you can see what that's done. If I duplicate this image and pop it here, and then I go back to before I made these adjustments, there was the original image, which was stretched, but extremely flat, versus the image now. Now, I'm not saying this is perfect in any way, but you can see the difference in the contrast in this image compared to what I'd done in my original stretch. Anyway, hopefully this really was a 5-minute Friday and not a 15-minute Friday, which I tend to chat away. Hopefully you've, between the two videos now on contrast, how to identify lack of contrast, and now how to actually work on that contrast, between the two of them, you can drastically improve your videos. Anyway, can you please consider liking and subscribing if you've got this far? It really does help the channel. It helps with me getting through the algorithm and being seen. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.